Hi, I am Karen Jaworski, and welcome to I Tried to Eat My Phone. I am joined today by my awesome friend Anne, and who I've known for way too long, right?
My God, yes, a long time.
We're going to talk a little bit about parenting today, and I would say during the pandemic, it's a tough time to be a parent. There's a
Yep.
lot to kind of, explain to your kids, and a lot of stuff that we don't have the background in to go along. But I will say, let's start with something positive. Like, what's a parenting moment that you've had that's like your shining moment? Like, did you have a parenting moment? And I'll just say, Anne has two boys. They are 15 now
15 and 9
and
and
9.
9.
And I think she's one of the people I look up to in terms of parenting. So
Oh, love you.
what's a shining no, I think I do. I look up to you in your style of parenting. So what's a shining moment that you have? Like, where have you been like, yes, like I did something good as a parent?
Well, I think seeing, my oldest like enter high school and be successful in like a pandemic, like,
Mhm.
that's a good feeling of like, all right, high five there. And that's like a lot of conversations about none of this is normal and like, I mean, just try and keep your crap together basically. And so that I would say this afternoon or today in the car, I had one where totally not appropriate, but my 9-year old was asking me who I was going to vote for the leadership council of school.
Oh,
And I told him I was going to vote for this woman named Carmen. And he's like, Carmen works her ass off. And I was like, mm-hmm. Okay. Keep driving. Don't react. And I was like, could you tell me more about that? And he was like, I mean, she works her ass off. Like, she works really hard. Like, she
Mhm.
cleans the cafeteria. She worked picture day and she touched other kids' hair. Like, and I was like, it was just epic. I mean, it was epic. And I was like, I mean, I'm not really proud that he swore, but I was like, the next time, let's try and use a different word. But really, it did sum up her. And then I sent her a text and I told her, I was like, I just have to tell you what Raphael said. And she was like, he did not say that. And I was like, yeah, no, he did say that. So, yes, those were the examples he gave. And
Uh-huh.
touching other people's hair, other kids' hair, that got me. So, I mean, I think, yeah, like that made me be like, okay, I mean, whatever happens, he'll probably be okay,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I just wrote, and she was kind of surprised. And I was like, yeah, I know he's 9, but he doesn't miss much, So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think I'm going to take a snippet of what you just said in terms of like kind of I have in terms of parenting goals, just when you just said, whatever happens, he'll be okay. I think that's a huge thing with parenting is like, are they going to be okay? Are they going to get out there and be all right? And that's
Well, I
massive.
mean, it's a crapshoot, right? Like you just like
Yeah.
kind of do the best you can. And, a lot of us had good models, but we also had some kind of wacky things too.
Mhm.
And, I know like, my husband's always like, well, the least amount that we can, really mess them up is like, let's be the goal.
Yeah.
And I remember like my therapist once said to me too, like, don't worry, they'll work it out in therapy someday. So that I always keep in the back of my head.
Yeah.
Um, I'm like, okay. But yeah, I mean, you're just trying to raise good people. And I think, I think that's what struck me by what he said today, which
Yeah.
was, he recognized someone who works really hard
Right.
and an adult. And in fact, like he's not really friends with her kid anymore. And
Mhm.
like that's okay, like I think he was like, remember we were friends in second grade, and I was like, yep, but we outgrow people sometimes, and
Mhm.
that's okay too. So yeah, I mean, but you just hope like, gosh, I hope I don't totally screw them up. And you know
Well, yeah, and I think you are, I mean, I'm not surprised coming from you and knowing you that you have a child with that kind of insight because that, I mean, I think that's a huge quality that a lot of people don't have. And it's not something you can just pick up. Like you kind of have to develop that. So I love
Yeah, I
that.
mean, well, thanks. I mean, I think, we try and be really open with our kids as much as it's, appropriate, and,
Mhm.
talk about things. And I mean, I think sometimes we can be more serious than maybe we want to be, but, we also try and laugh with them. And,
Yeah.
I'm a pretty straight shooter with them. I don't really, mince my words or like cover up things, because I don't think that's helpful either.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever have a moment where you where have been your parenting fails? Because I definitely have moments where I'm like, oh, I
Ding.
that
Right.
probably wasn't a good choice. Yeah.
Right. Like
It's
ding.
my phone is acknowledging me being
Yeah,
correct about
totally.
failing.
Um, yeah, like I haven't been great with my boys about like picking stuff up, like
Ah,
it hasn't really been like, it's just not a major priority for me. And I'm sure like you've probably seen that quote, which is like, like kids won't remember like a clean house or like things like that, but they'll remember, their moments they have. And maybe I've taken that way too much to heart, like, oh, whatever, who cares. But I've started saying to Gabriel, who's my 15-year-old, like, in 4 years you're going to college and I'm not going with you unless that's what you want, which I'm thinking it's not. So someone's probably going to have to live with you and they're going to be really upset. Like that you left your towel on the floor again, like, and even just like, okay, your clothes are on the floor, you could just carry them downstairs and put them in the washing machine. Like just kind of that extra effort of doing like house stuff and, talking to people, like in kind of our group chat and stuff. I'm like, ooh, failure. Ooh, I failed on that front. I mean,
yeah.
yeah. And also probably, I mean, I try not to beat myself up about this, but I was raised in a super religious, like we go to church every Sunday kind of thing. And I have not enforced that in my
Mhm.
life with my children. I mean, part of me thinks that's just a personal decision.
Mhm.
But there's part of me that's like, maybe I should have exposed them a little more than I did.
Mhm.
So I don't know if I can say that's like a major fail. I mean,
Yeah, they'll I think they'll find it if they want to, you
yeah.
know. I think
But
I think that's but yeah.
yeah, but the picking up and kind of like owning your stuff and like
Mhm.
its space, and that we put the Star Wars figures back in the bin that's been provided. Um, like, which I did the other day, and then I walked out in the living room today and they're all out on the floor again. I'm like, mother of, and I'm like, you do know that those are, oh yeah, I'll pick them up. Sure, right, you will.
When you say the bin that's been provided, that's like kind of the child equivalent of per my previous email.
Yes, yes.
Like as per
Please
our
note,
recent
right.
discussion. Yes.
Please note. Um, yeah, I think that would be the big one right now.
Yeah.
You know, what about you?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, that's definitely been an area for me. I think I've mentioned it on our group chat too, like just that, and especially this year, with going
Yeah,
through
well,
cancer treatment and the
dude, you get a free
pandemic.
pass, in my opinion. But
Yeah, but at the same time, like, I think there have been times where I've always been the like, I was talking to another friend about this on another interview where I said one of my favorite things in psychology class was to learn about something called internal locus of control versus external locus of control. And like,
uh-huh.
do you take responsibility or do you not? Like, or do you like say like, okay, like, no, I didn't pass the test because they didn't give us the right materials, and then they changed the test around, and I didn't know that they were going to change the test around.
Right.
And I think we have some examples of that in popular culture these days.
Right.
But
A
I would
few.
say I'm like overly internal locus of control.
Mhm.
And someone falls down and I'm like, oh gosh, should I help them? Did I trip them? I'm a little over the top about it. And I tend to just take on everything and be like, well, I'll just take care of it. I'll just do
Yeah.
that. And I realized that um that's a fault as a parent, because
Mhm.
you're not expecting that from the people around you. You're not saying, okay, you take over part of this responsibility.
Yeah.
So like the other week, I had the girls, I said, okay, you know what, because I was making bread and I was like, I need to vacuum too, and I was like, you know what, I should just have them vacuum. And that's when Bridget was like vacuuming, and they didn't complain about it, but when
Right.
she was vacuuming, she was like, I feel like we're in Mrs. Doubtfire, like that part where she makes him do all the work. And I was like, wow, this is where I have not like,
Yeah.
been, I'm not a taskmaster, and I've always been that way. Cause I think for me too, growing up, I kind of took on everything myself. Like
Yeah, you
my
did.
parents didn't ask me to do anything. I just did it because, I wanted to take some of the
Burden.
burden
Mhm.
away from them. I mean, they had Beth to deal with and a lot of stuff going on. And I just kind of took that on and was like, well, I'll mow the lawn and I'll do this and I'll do that. And they didn't request that, but I did that. And so I kind of went the other direction and was like
Yeah.
a little too lax on like, what are you
Yeah.
supposed to do to be a part of this household? So now I'm a little more like, okay, it's your turn to feed the dog. It's your turn to do this. Go ahead
Yeah.
and load the dishwasher, put that in, change
Yeah,
that, do that.
that's really happened with Gabriel. Like, he does the dishwasher now, and like, it's always kind of a, why wouldn't you just load the dishes if there's dishes in there? But,
Right.
gotta have that conversation. And then garbage is always, and in fact, I
Yeah.
just asked him to go walk and get me my prescription that they forgot to give me yesterday at the
Uh-huh.
pharmacy.
Uh-huh.
Cause I'm like, you know what? Like, it's good for you. Go outside. I've already been outside. I went to get dinner. Like, like, just, but like, I also think like that's what you want them to be like as adults. So,
Mhm.
they don't, I mean, intuitively, they just don't, I don't think, know how to do that. And I think also, like, I mean, their generation is pretty, they get what they want and that's
Mhm.
about it. So, I mean,
Yeah.
and I don't think you realize it until they're older. And then you're like, oh crap. Like,
Right. And it's hard because I mean, it can be a disservice to them to not
yes.
have those expectations. So,
Yeah, like college, like someone's
mhm.
gonna have to live with them and they're gonna be like, who raised you? Like,
Yeah, I like what
seriously.
you said before about, oh, you're going to live with someone else and they're going to be irritated that you're not
Yeah.
picking up your
They're gonna be
stuff
like,
or pulling your weight.
yeah, like, who are you? And
Mhm.
or he'll like have a totally spoiled brat as a roommate, and then he'll be like, wow, like I look pretty good. But I mean,
Yeah.
in general, I think most, whoever it is will be like, okay, get it together, dude. So we have like 4 years to do that.
That's
I can do
good.
that.
What I think with parenting, John and I have had this conversation a lot too, like taking away, like where did you kind of learn to be the kind of parent you are? And there are circumstances too where a lot of people, they either continue what they know, or they say, I'm not going to do that.
Mhm.
So what constructed your kind of style of parenting?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, I think a lot of different things. I think babysitting, right, helped
Mhm.
because you saw a lot of really, excuse me, batshit crazy stuff in people's houses and be like, okay. And I think that taught me a lot. And I saw how parents acted, that weren't mine. I think that was
Mhm.
really helpful.
Mhm.
I was like essentially a firstborn again because my oldest brother went to college when I was in fourth grade, and my middle brother went to prep school that same year.
Mhm.
So I think one thing sometimes that got a little bit confusing sometimes, like with my mom, was that she, was like, well, we're good friends. And I'm like, but we're not really friends. Like, I mean, you want to be
Oh.
friends, right? But then you
Mhm.
don't because you're like, I just want you to be my parent,
Yeah.
And I think that was one. I mean, my husband's French, so they have a very different view of parenting. And,
Mm.
that was one thing he was like, we're not our kids' friends, like, we're their parents. And
Mm.
I think that has helped make things clearer for me too. But I don't know. Like, I wouldn't say, I mean, I think therapy helped with that too. Like,
Mm.
my therapist had 3 kids or has 3 kids, and just listening to like his stories about raising kids, like there was a lot of insight I learned from him, and sometimes still do.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, and also watching my brother raise his boys, and
Mhm.
I think being around a lot of different families, you see a lot of things. And I think you see, like, especially the stuff that you're like, oh God, don't let my kid turn out like that, like,
Yeah.
and then you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I mean, I say it a lot, like, I know it sounds bad, but like about in reference to people from school and like their kids. And I'm like, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree,
Mhm.
right? And so you're
Mhm.
like, I just don't want my kid, like, I want my kid to be seen as like a good person who's kind and, participates in life. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to win the Nobel Prize, but like, just be good. And I think that is probably all the different ways. I mean, and I'm still learning. I learn from like our group text, and I mean, I learn from reading articles or books or, just even like a quote, and you're like, oh, that was good.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine that I talked to the other day, and we covered the topic of parenting too. And she said, sometimes I feel like I'm looking around for the more, she's like, I'm almost 50. And she's like, I look around for the more adultier person in the room to
Oh,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
to guide me. Cause yeah, you're learning every day. And as your kids change, I mean, I think that's kind of I just remember thinking like the moment you think you have it nailed as a parent, it's
Yeah, you
like,
don't.
nope. Like,
No,
how
and
about
even actually,
this?
I will
Like,
say that my mother said that to me when we had Gabrielle. My mother said, you will think that you figured it out and then it will change again. And I remember being like, God, really? Like, I have a brand new baby right now and I'm not feeling great. And like, you're like, oh, well, and now I'm like, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not what you want to hear, but
no. Yeah, I mean, kids are great at switching it up on you. You're like,
Oh,
oh, we got the bedtime routine down like that. And then the next day you're like, or not.
no,
Like,
or like for us, for instance, like totally thought we'd rocked the parenting thing with Gabriel. We're like, this is so easy. Like he's like easygoing and he went to sleep and like, and then we had Raphael and God was like, oh no, you do not have it figured out at all. Let me just show you. We're gonna just really whip it up right
yeah,
now. And that's exactly, we still deal with it. I mean, yeah. I mean,
yeah. No, John and I did a lot of back patting of ourselves
yes. Like
with the
we're like,
first,
yes, we
and then we were
nailed it.
like, and then
Yep. And
the
then you were like,
second one came
oh,
along, and we were like, we have no idea what we're doing.
right. And then
So,
you're like, everything we did doesn't work with this person. So
yeah,
what in the
yeah,
hell? Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yep. Still.
I get you.
Mm hmm. Still.
Sometimes I wonder how Beth would have been like had she not had disabilities. Like I feel like she would have been
Oh,
rebellious and
oh
like an
yeah.
artist somewhere, or like
No,
I
she
was
would have.
like,
Like living on
I'm
a commune or something. Yeah. Like,
she could
yeah.
have, or traveling all over. She would have been living somewhere cool, and like
Yeah. Yeah.
every once in a while
Totally.
I
Like,
kind of think about
having
that.
about a bunch of boyfriends and yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
what do you think? I think about this a lot too. Like, and this kind of speaks to what we were just talking about, but what have your kids taught you about yourself? Like, what have you learned about yourself as a parent? Like, or going through the parenting process, what have you figured out about yourself that
Um, it's kind of interesting because I would say that it's one area in my life that I don't doubt myself that much with
hmm,
parenting,
mhm,
which is funny because I don't know why. I just don't. I kind of intuitively know, like, okay, well, maybe we'll try this, or maybe, this won't work. I don't know though, appreciating the teenage years, that might just go all the way out the window. I'm like, oh my God, the other day I was like, I gotta find some books, gotta find some books about teenage boys. Like, I gotta do that because I don't know. Like, um, I think, it's definitely shown me again, like, that I'm a fighter, like I'll take anyone out for them,
Mm.
and maybe sometimes too much to an extent, but yeah, I mean, um, I
No, I
really,
think you've always been like one of my biggest soldiers in my army. Like,
mm,
and I can picture that as being an important component for your kids' lives, is to be like, our mom is, she's behind us
yeah,
100%.
yeah. I mean, I
That's
think they
huge.
know that. Yeah. But I think that I didn't give myself that credit until when, in all honesty, Raphael's a diverse learner
Mhm.
or special ed. I don't know. I don't like diverse learner either, but and I've just had to learn a lot and educate myself and just really stand up and be like, that's not acceptable. Like, you're not going to
Mhm.
do that to my kid. And, I had to do it today on parent teacher conferences, and people don't like that. I mean,
Mhm.
especially, I mean, sorry, teachers, but teachers don't like that either. And, I mean, it is what it is, but I found that, like, if I'm not fighting for him, who is? And especially in, a diverse learner, special ed situation. I mean, and a lot of times what stops me is and makes me really feel brokenhearted are the kids that don't have me, as their parent.
Well, that's what
That's
I
a
was gonna
huge.
say. I feel like, teachers in general, I mean, it's, I know, yeah, I can see where they sometimes are, project being overwhelmed and stuff by, parents who are like, he needs this, he needs this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think, from my experience, teachers are more frustrated or more saddened by situations where there is not an advocacy
Right.
there. And
Right.
so that's, I mean, I feel like, a lot of people are like, well, at least they're involved. Like,
Right.
like you as parent,
Yeah.
like that you have his best interest at heart, and that's huge.
Yeah.
I think that's
So
a
I
big
would say,
deal.
probably realizing how, like, important humor is in dealing with a lot of the situations
Yeah.
too. And I think sometimes I don't realize it, and then I'm like, oh no, like, like, you've got that dry wit and that sense of humor. I mean, Gabriel can just, like, lay it on. You're like, wow, that was hilarious. Like, but I would say that I served me more than I thought it would,
Yeah.
in parenting. Because if you can't laugh about it, like the bed breaking tonight, like, I mean, whatever, 2020. Thank you very much. And then I
Like,
said to
just
him,
and check.
yep,
Like,
sure, just bring it on.
do you
But
want me to
yeah,
send some murder hornets out? Because we have some here. So,
do you really?
yeah, over in like Blaine, Washington, they found
Oh
like a
yeah,
huge
that's
hive
not
or
very
what.
far from you, is it? With like
Yeah.
the 200 murder, whatever they are.
Uh-huh. And I love, they talked to the guy on the property and he was like, yeah, I was back there like within like 3 feet of that thing the other week. And he's like, yeah, I didn't realize. It's like,
They
oh
said it
my
was like
God.
200 females, wasn't it?
Yes.
That's not good.
That
Wherever
just
there's,
makes me like my
sorry,
spine
but
go
right,
like,
wherever there's 200 females,
yeah.
no. But in a nest,
Anytime you have 200 females,
yeah, I'm just gonna say that.
it's gonna be a problem.
Sorry, ladies, but it's true.
we
Yeah,
cause a ruckus. Yes.
we do. That's why, I mean, being in a sorority was good. I had to learn to get along with women, you know?
The murder hornets nest of
Murder hornets.
so one last question I had for you when I was thinking about this. So if you could relive the birth of your kids, let's take the pain part out.
Right. God.
Uh, would you do that? And would you take in anything differently? I mean, it's kind of a big experience to bring forth another human into the world, but what are your memories of that, and how would you relive it?
Um, well, I think when you have your first baby, you're just so clueless. You're like, oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah, we'll
And
go home today, and then you're like, oh crap, we should have stayed there like
right,
3 days. Like,
right. I think, I mean, I pushed for like 2 hours and then they were like, he's not coming out this way. So we'll do a C-section. At that point, I was like, just get this baby out. I was like, and the best feeling was like the warm blankets in the OR. I was like, this rocks. Like, and then I was like, I see why people do drugs. Like, I get it. I mean, I think wasn't really prepared for the postpartum that I experienced with him.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm proud of myself that I took care of it the way that I did, but
Yeah.
that's hard, like especially if you're not prepared for it or you just think. I mean, I remember looking at him and being like, don't think I'm ever going to love you. So not sure what we do here,
Yeah.
and so that, if I could take that part away, I would take that part away. But then I think, I mean, I ended up being in like the special moms group at Northwestern, and it was a special moms group, but it was like, they took our babies for us so that we were able to like have time to like away and talk. And,
Oh.
I met some really cool, like strong women in that group. So I don't know. You think, well, I would take that away, but then it's also taught me a lot about how to be strong, and
Yeah.
fight through depression and know the power of medication and
Yeah.
all of that, and sleep. And um, I think I would have let go of like the guilt about breastfeeding earlier,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
because he came out and was big. Well, not big, but he's like off the charts. You know how big he is still, but like, I mean, he just wanted formula, and I was like, no, we have to breastfeed. And it was literally my mother-in-law coming from France, and she was like, you're gonna take that breast pump back. What? This is stupid. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, like there's someone giving me that permission to,
Yeah.
not be a breastfeeding mom.
Yeah.
I think with Raphael, it was a lot different experience. I mean, my marriage wasn't in an ideal place when he was born.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so that was tough, but
Yeah.
and it ended up, I mean, it was a scheduled C-section, which actually was worse. So I probably, if I could have avoided that, I would have. But
Mm.
I also like, because I had had the experience with Gabriel, I was like, yeah, this baby's going to be formula fed. Don't even talk to me about breastfeeding. No one in this hospital,
Yep.
and I was like, give me my medication so I don't have like
Yeah.
massive postpartum like I did with Gabriel, which I really didn't,
Good for you to advocate for yourself on those
Oh,
fronts,
yeah.
because
I was like, I had it all prepared, it was very clear with everyone.
yeah.
But I mean, I think like I always think like I remember when my OB said in French that it was a boy with Gabriel, and I was like, boy, like garçon, and I was like, I think that means boy, but I was like so drugged, right? And and then I was like, yes, because I don't. I mean, I admire you for having two girls. Like, I just don't think that I was meant to have girls. Like, I
Mhm.
think one of us would be really extremely hurt, perhaps dead. I don't know. And
Yeah.
I just kind of like that. I don't know, I'm thankful for boys too. I mean, I'm sure I would have loved a little girl, yada yada, but saved me a lot of money because like I would have gone crazy with the clothes and like the shoes and the accessory. I mean, forget it. Betty Lou still talks about the fact that she does not have a granddaughter. I'm like, you need to give that up now. Like, now we're done talking about
She
it.
can send clothes to my girls if she
Okay,
wants.
she
That's
will.
fine.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think, what about you? Matt, I'm going to ask you that question.
Um, yeah, I mean, both births were kind of a crazy experience. It's funny, I think I hated being pregnant. I
Yes, me too.
absolutely hated being pregnant. I was panicked the whole time.
Yeah, I just
And
wasn't
and I think
comfortable.
part of it was that I always envied people who walked around pregnant and they were all excited and happy and like,
Looked beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, and even that, I mean, I could be pretty hot pregnant when I wanted to, but no, no, but I was just scared the whole time because I
Yeah.
just thought, because of my family
Yeah.
and our background and the amount of genetic issues in our family and the losses that have occurred
Right.
in a lot of family members, I knew that it wasn't a given to
No,
just have a healthy baby. And
it's
I
not.
think that a lot of people get to go into pregnancy and be like, yeah, I get pregnant and then I have this baby and everything's great. And I was like, crap, like there's like, I just hope they're okay. I hope they're okay. I hope they're okay. I hope they're okay.
Yeah,
And
there's
as
a lot
soon
of
as they were
variables.
born and they were out, then I'm like, all right, we got this. Like, as soon as I knew they were out and healthy, I was like, I can handle anything from here. Like, and whereas a lot of people I knew who were like super happy being pregnant, then they had an infant and they were like, I don't know what to do. Like, this is
Right.
overwhelming. Like, I don't know what, and I would be
This is
like,
not the
just,
way the books or the magazines make it look.
yeah,
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
like, just do what you think you should do. Like, don't let anyone tell you you
Hmm.
have to, with the breastfeeding and stuff too. I mean, I had to delay even trying to breastfeed both girls because John is a carrier of the Duarte variant of the galactosemia.
That's right. That's right.
And so we had to wait until we had genetic testing done. And I remember the lactation consultant came into the room after Maria was born, like a day later, and she was like, why are you not
Yeah.
breastfeeding?
Yeah.
And
They're
I thought my
crazy.
mom was there. They had gotten out there. I thought my mom was going to literally like shove her into a wall and pummel her. And I
I
was
would pay
like,
for that.
well, because if you read my chart, like,
Yeah.
and
Because there's a
and then
reason.
she backed off, but I was like, dude, lady, if you're a lactation consultant, you should probably know the like two genetic disorders where you shouldn't do that right away. So yeah, she was not my
Terrifying.
favorite person, but yeah, so I mean, I think in general, like the experiences were pretty good. I had the kidney issues before
Yeah.
Bridget, which was
Yeah.
totally frightening, and she came out blue.
Oh, yeah. Raphael wasn't
Which
breathing when he came
Oh
out.
yeah,
I
that's
left out that
scary.
part.
Like I was so out of it that I didn't know John was watching it and like panicking watching
Yeah.
me because I was not doing well and panicking watching Bridget because she was blue. And I just remember looking at his face and he was like, and
Yeah.
and so that
I
was
don't
a little
even think I
scary.
saw Nicola's face. I remember he was up caught underneath my rib cage and the OB got him out. And then, like, I just remember it being quiet. Like, he wasn't breathing. And then I was getting like, what's going on? And I remember the OB being like, we need to, like, we're operating right now. Like, we need to get you back together and like, let's focus on you. And then I heard this big like commotion. It was like all of the NICU people running through the doors. And it was my nurse was able to get him breathing. I mean, but yeah, like, and then he started crying, and I was like, "Did I have a cat? Like, why does my baby sound like my baby sounds like a cat?" And he was so tiny. He was like 6'1",
Oh.
and he was like, I was like, I had a cat. Like, I remember thinking that, and I'm still like to this
Sorry,
day,
that's
I'm like,
not funny, but it
no, but it's
is.
awesome because I was clearly drugged as well, and I was like, is that a cat or is that a baby? Like, I must have had a cat, like literally.
I'm I'm glad he turned out the way he did.
Yeah. Yeah. He's not a cat, but yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't that feel like a lifetime ago though, when you think about it? Sometimes you're
Yes.
like, oh boy,
Yes.
that was just phew,
Yeah.
like that.
Whew.
I mean, it's a lot to go through, and I mean, the result is worth it in the end, but
Yes. Not so
yeah.
I'm when they're teenagers, it's debatable on days.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, the other
true.
day I was like, I really don't like you. I'm like, I really don't. And then I was like, I love you. In my head, I'm like, I don't like you. I'm like, I'm not gonna say it out loud. I might someday, but yeah. Hmm.
We have which understandably we're all kind of in this funk a little bit these days, but we have a lot of moping going on here. So
Good
that's the
time.
kind of I have flashbacks to my mom being like, look, you know what? We're gonna have a good weekend. So if you want to join us in this weekend, like and drop the attitude, like you
Right.
can, but we're gonna have a fun time regardless
Yeah.
of
These
your
people right
attitude.
here are
Like,
gonna have
yeah.
fun. Yeah, I
And
know.
now I'm like, I get
Yeah.
it.
And then you want to say the same thing. Like, you can take your attitude and yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
Totally.
know.
Totally. I'm like,
How I know. I sometimes I mean, you have a whole new respect for what your parents did.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because there were times when we were jerks as
Right.
kids and like did stupid stuff and like,
Yeah.
and we weren't even half as bad as
A
other
lot
people.
of
So
them. Hmm.
yeah. So
We were pretty good. I will
yeah,
say, Lanigan, we were pretty
you're a
good.
little
I
goody
mean,
two shoes ish.
we were.
It's good.
Ding, ding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Shine it up. I know. That's what I just remember my mom would come into my room sometimes and be like, we just want to make sure like everything's going okay or whatever. And be like, they had just watched like 48 hours or something about, it's like, you have no idea how incredibly nerdy I am.
Yeah, I
Like
know.
there is
Like, just
absolutely nothing interesting going
not
on in my
nothing is interesting right now. Nothing.
life.
No, I know. I know. Me too. I was
Yeah.
the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's fingers crossed that that's our kids too.
Well, right. No joke.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I will say, well, I'll leave you with this. I remember we had a babysitter come and she was like, so she's awesome. She's a nanny too. She's young. I see her in the neighborhood still. And she's like, so I figured them out. And I'm like, okay. And she was like, so whereas Gabriel will get the fake ID so he can go into the bar and just kind of see what's going on, maybe ask for a beer, but that's kind of pushing it.
Uh-huh.
Raphael will have the fake ID and he will go to the bar and he will drink and then he will stand on the bar and then he'll do karaoke. And I was like, mm-hmm. She's like, I nailed it, didn't I? And I'm like, you totally did. Yep. Yep. Nailed it. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I think our children are very similar.
We'll have to keep them apart.
Oh God.
Bridget and Raphael. Yeah.
Oh, that would be terrifying.
Yeah, they're close in age too. She's 1 year older.
Yeah, I know. All right.
Scary.
We'll
Right.
get together sometime, but we'll make sure that they're
They're separate.
not
Mm-hmm.
doing that they're
Plotting
supervised.
anything. Planning, plotting.
Yeah.
Right.
Our
Yeah.
demise. Thanks, Anne.
All right. Thanks.